It's a funny one because for so long we thought Andrew was going to get done for, and it looks like it's actually.
Well, we haven't got. There are various police forces. It went from 4 police forces to 9 police forces. There are investigations open into activities. Why were these planes coming in and out of this country? 60 flights with people who didn't even have their name in the flight logs. Where were the visas? Why were they allowed to land at Northolt? And why were they were allowed into places where they shouldn't have been allowed to go because Prince Andrew demanded it. And when those people when you get off a private plane, a lot of things, the documentation is not like when you go on the EasyJet or the British Airways. It's easier to move things in and out without problems. Bernie Ecclestone happens to own Biggin Hill, an airport, which is another of these places where these flights would go and come and go. And a lot of these powerful people connect. And what I do when I look into a story is I create a sort of mind map and I can do a spider's web of these people. And the complexity of the depth of these people is so strong. And they tend to protect one another. And it is incredibly worrying that these poor victims have had to wait so long for justice.
앤드류 왕자의 요청으로 RAF 군사기지에 착륙한 엡스타인의 비행기, 이름조차 기록되지 않은 승객들, 60회의 비밀 항공편, 현재 9개 경찰서가 동시에 수사 중입니다.
Well, I believe that Andrew and Virginia Roberts did have relations. I was the person who proved that the bathtub in the Kinnerton Street house that belonged to Ghislaine Maxwell was a full-sized bathtub. During her deposition in the early 2000s, Ghislaine Maxwell said that nothing could have occurred in her bathtub because the bathtub was too small. She lied to the FBI because it was a full-sized bathtub. The bathroom had a shower in it as well, a full-sized shower. This was not a small room. Boris Becker was able to have a bonk in a broom cupboard. And literally, it doesn't matter what size the space was, but she claimed that the photograph at that time was a lie, and then she changed her mind and said the photo was real. The banister in the house is real.
Sean found that.
Sean was able to do that. Other people I know have been inside. Other people I know think that the heights are wrong.
This is the photo of Andrew.
This is
Virginia.
the photograph with Virginia and Ghislaine,
yes.
which was taken.
When you say Virginia Roberts.
Virginia Roberts was her name then when it occurred.
Because I think people know her as Giuffre, don't they?
Giuffre, yes. So she used, sometimes it's Virginia Roberts, sometimes it's Virginia Giuffre, sometimes it's Virginia Roberts Giuffre.
I see.
But that photograph, I think, is interesting because when the first person to see it saw it, and when she was getting out information, when she talked to a journalist about this, she had a file and she just dropped all the stuff. And she did not particularly push that photograph forward. It was that one person that found it. Now, that photograph has since vanished. But they took a photograph of the photograph and the back of it. And that photograph, the Mail have spent a huge amount of money proving that photograph can't be a fake because, it was way before digital photography. And that photograph has been admitted to be real.
질레인 맥스웰은 FBI 앞에서도 거짓말을 했습니다. 욕조가 너무 작아 아무 일도 없었다고요. 하지만 욕조는 일반 크기였고 사진은 결국 진짜로 판명됐습니다.
Traffics.
Yes. So her own family were involved in all sorts of terrible things in America, and then she ended up working in Mar-a-Lago, which is how she met Ghislaine Maxwell. And then from there she was taken by Epstein. And then Epstein took her to Europe and all over the world. And, she's in the same outfit as in the photograph in the house at Naomi Campbell's birthday party in Saint-Tropez only months later. And, that place was with Flavio Briatore, her then boyfriend, Naomi Campbell, and Bernie Ecclestone. They're all on board this boat. And she's there and, she's very young. You can see how young this girl is and young and naive. And people criticize her because she did recruit others ultimately. But having spoken to so many of these victims, I know 3 out of 5 of Ghislaine's victims. I know the English victim the best because I knew her before I knew she was a victim.
And these are anonymous names publicly.
She was a Jane Doe in the case, yes. And she was married to a restaurateur in London. She ultimately became a model, and she dated David Hasselhoff for a while. And, you know, she's now a campaigner for the victims, and other ones I've spoken to, the same. They were sucked into this world. They were promised things. So Juliette Bryant, the South African victim, she met Epstein with Bill Clinton, Kevin Spacey, all the others when they were in South Africa. She was told, come to America, you can get a next top model contract. And she was taken there. She was told, we're going to go on to this island. Her passport's taken away. Once she's there, how do you escape? How do you escape an island? And you can't exactly swim away very quickly.
No.
So she then compartmentalized this and didn't talk about it for years. She didn't tell her own family. And people are scared of these people. The problem with the likes of Ghislaine was she just treated them as playthings. And I do believe Ghislaine to be more wicked. I believe Ghislaine to be the organ grinder. He was the facility. He was pulling her. He was following her orders.
모델 계약을 미끼로 유인된 피해자들. 섬에 도착하자마자 여권이 사라졌습니다. 상어가 들끓는 바다로 둘러싸인 섬. 탈출은 불가능했습니다.
Ghislaine Maxwell, 1991, after her father is dead, claims to be penniless. She tells everybody she's got no money. There's nothing. They've taken even my teaspoons, she said. Within 6 months, she's in New York with Epstein, who she claims she didn't meet until then. We've been able to prove that Epstein's connection to the Maxwell family goes back to at least 1970, because in the birthday book of Jeffrey Epstein, a man called Elliot Wolk, who was a financier, who he referenced when we worked together on the Maxwell family account. This is a strong connection. Epstein's connection to London, I believe, goes back as far as 1974. A woman called Aldine Honey, who's an estate agent, a South African, she references selling Jeffrey Epstein a flat when he was 21 years old in Eaton Square. I cannot understand how he could afford to buy a flat in Eaton Square, which is a very expensive address at 21, given, you know, he'd just been interrailing around Europe. He was not from an elite. He had been a taxi driver.